It's Friday here on the North Shore Drive podcast for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm your host, Chris Carter, joined today by Brian Batko. We're going to get you ready for Steelers-Browns. But first, Arthur Smith doing a good job, maybe too good of a job. Is he going to be taken away from the Steelers? Is he going to go for another head coaching job real soon? We'll talk about that, give you our pick six for the weekend and our final predictions for Steelers hosting the Browns. All here on the North Shore Drive podcast. Let's get into it.
You are now listening to the North Shore Drive Podcast, a show on all things Pittsburgh sports from the writers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, hosted by Christopher Carter.
Hello, welcome to the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm your host, Chris Carter, joined today by Brian Batko, one of our great Steelers beat writers. And as always, you can find us here on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily content, as well as the Monday, Wednesday, Friday episodes of the North Shore Drive content podcast. And some of that daily content is Chipped Ham and Football, which Brian Batko hosts every Tuesday right here on those same networks. As always, this show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder Associates. Whether you're injured in a car accident or hurt on the job, Edgar Snyder Associates has helped injury victims for over 40 years recover more than $2 billion on their behalf. If you or a loved one have been seriously injured in an accident, call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit www.edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. Brian, let's talk about some Arthur Smith. Now, there were some rumors that he was in the running for the North Carolina job. Those rumors have now shifted to Bill Belichick. Good luck with everyone covering that. But there is the question as far as Arthur Smith and what he's done in Pittsburgh and if he's getting quickly recognized for doing something good here. And frankly, I kind of get it because right now the Steelers have the 10th best scoring offense in the NFL, which if you had told someone that last year, they would have said, you're drunk. You're crazy. There's no possible way it can happen. Not with Russell Wilson, not with this young offensive line, not with all the leftovers of Matt Canada days. Do you think Arthur Smith has earned the look at another head coaching spot so quickly, or do you think this is just people kicking tires and just maybe this is something that'll be still a few years down the line?
You know, I was leaning toward the latter. And hello, Chris. It was fun hanging out with you in Cincinnati last weekend. So, yeah, I mean, I would have leaned toward the latter probably a month ago, maybe even a couple weeks ago. But I think there's a couple factors at play here that do make me, think it's legitimate possibility that he could be one and done as the Steelers offensive coordinator. Number one, just the landscape of the NFL coaching circumstances right now around the league. I mean, there's going to be a lot of openings. I think there already are a few, and I think there are some guys who are pretty much dead men walking. Hope that's not offensive. Obviously, I don't mean that literally.
You're fine.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of teams looking for a fresh start. We know that teams tend to gravitate more toward the offensive-minded coaches, especially if you've got a young quarterback in place who you think you can get more out of. And he is doing a good job with the Steelers. I mean, they made a quarterback switch midstream and haven't missed a beat. They are beating good teams. They are finding ways to win games. They're not always producing a ton of points, but you're not going to be the greatest show on turf week in and week out in this league. So, yeah, I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance that a team could talk themselves into, okay, a few rough years in Atlanta, and they really weren't that rough. I mean, they were kind of mediocre or slightly below average. It's not like it was a dumpster fire by any means, and I think it was kind of a tough call for Arthur Blank and company to fire him with the Falcons. They didn't have a quarterback. Now, part of that was on him, and he's been pretty transparent about saying he had a lot of say in the roster decision, so I don't think he's running from that. But that's still a different skill set than being a coach and a play caller is. So if you feel like you have the quarterback on your roster or you feel like you're going to be in position to get one who can succeed, then, there's all of that. And I think the cherry on top of it, if I were to want to present Arthur Smith's resume and if you were to hire me as his agent, he's learning under Mike Tomlin right now. And Mike Tomlin's hot right now. Arthur Smith could be hot right now by extension. So I don't know. Like, I'd have to sit down and really look at every job that will or could be open this offseason. And we know it's going to be a competitive market with Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel, and Brian Flores is going to be right there at the top of the hiring cycle this year. The two Lions coordinators who've been patient and waited for the right chance. But after kind of that 5 or 6 of top tier guys, maybe Cliff Kingsbury too, but I don't know how much separates Kingsbury from what Arthur Smith has done here, trying to rehabilitate his NFL career in Pittsburgh.
So you brought up those Lions coordinators. I think that's kind of where I was going next, because they were, we were watching Thursday Night Football, the Lions with another crazy win. The offense, of course, making a lot of big plays. Ben Johnson has been like, the talk of the country when it comes to who should be the next big head coach hire. And this might be the year that he does it. But last year, people were saying it was going to be him, and then he stuck around. He said we had unfinished business. I think it could be interesting if Arthur Smith says, wait a minute. We're probably going to get Russell Wilson back. We're assuming he's going to be re-signed. Probably still going to have George Pickens, assuming he's going to be re-signed. You got a really young offensive line that you didn't even get your first round pick to be able to use at all this year in Troy Fautanu, and they took several strides forward. They have, they're probably going to be adding some pieces to this group, whether it's another, wide receiver. Maybe if they let go of Najee, they get another running back. But there's going to be legit pieces here. Why not stick around for one more year with this team that, if they're competitive this year, they probably will be competitive again next year. But there's also striking while the iron is hot, because you never know if you have a bad injury next year. Let's say Russell Wilson gets hurt, or a bunch of guys get hurt, and then all of a sudden your offense is bad. And people are like, I don't know about this. It's one of those things where it's the gambling on yourself and on your team that often coaches and players do when they're looking for their next big deals in the NFL. And I think that's where Arthur Smith's decision might come from, is hey, what can I do here? What can I trust that's going to happen here in Pittsburgh that'll boost my resume even more if I stick around for a second year?
Yeah, and he said a couple weeks ago when he was asked on Thanksgiving about the North Carolina job, his college alma mater. Now that's a little different than another NFL head coaching job, but he said there was a time in his life where, there's an opening for a head coach, I'll walk there. He's not in that place anymore, maybe because he scratched that itch, but he also does understand kind of the right fit and, the factors that you need to be successful. But all that said, there are only 32 of them, and kind of just, logically, if there are a bunch open and a bunch that get filled this offseason, then you'd have to think you're giving a lot of these first year coaches 2 and 3 years rather than going the David Tepper route. So it's going to be interesting to see how much buzz he gets on the market this offseason. Look at some of the teams, what are the Bears going to do? They've got a young quarterback who they need to get that right for Caleb Williams. The Jets, who knows what's going to go on with them and their quarterback situation, but I think it's a really nice feather in Arthur Smith's cap that he's had success with 2 different quarterbacks and 2 very different styles of quarterbacks this offseason with the Steelers. Now, that doesn't mean he's been perfect. It doesn't absolve him of just a couple weeks ago. To bring it back to this week's matchup, I would say the scheme and the game plan for the first matchup with the Browns was maybe his worst performance of the season in that job. Now, it's a little wonky with the snow, short week, a team that came out fired up and got some momentum early, but I think he got a little bit, I think he overthought it a little bit at times, and maybe there was too conservative of an approach, and you never necessarily know if it's coming down from Mike Tomlin in those meetings throughout the week, but it almost felt like they went into that first Cleveland game with, we're better than these guys. Their season's over. They've got no juice. Let's just let's keep the ball on the ground. Let's not risk much. We'll be conservative and we'll still get out of this stadium with a win. Obviously, that was not the case.
Obviously, it wasn't. And I think in that game, we talked about it. They could have gone after Pat Freiermuth a little bit more. He was eating against them. And I think that's what this game has to represent against the Browns. They have to show what they're doing. I asked Russell Wilson about how he feels about how things have kind of compounded for the offense based off of Arthur Smith's play calling. And I thought it was interesting, some of the things that he got into, because as you know, Russell Wilson can be very long-winded at times, but he's still in his long answers, he can give some really good nuggets. And he said, he talked about how they're prepared for what opponents want to do. They study it. We understand it. What we're trying to do and what we're trying to get in certain moments. He said, I think we've done a good job going into halftime, going into games, and at the same time throughout the game as well. I think that there's been a pressure keeping the foot on the gas throughout the game, and it's something that I think Arthur and I really understand and have done a really good job of. I think that it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of work and a lot of studying, but I think we're doing a good job of it in the collective. He also talked about how Arthur Smith has a lot of confidence in this offense, and I kind of feel that there. And I did this a bit of my film study and showing that, like, hey, after the Steelers hit certain things, Arthur Smith layered it like other calls and sequenced it so that something came after it that played off of that. Like, Najee Harris was killing the Bengals with underneath catches that he was turning from 2-yard, throws into 10-yard gains. And the Bengals eventually jumped all over it. And as soon as they did, here's a crossing pattern, right? Where those linebackers left to go run after Harris. And to me, seeing a coordinator do that is what Steelers fans were asking for, all what anyone was asking for from Matt Canada, because there were things that they did hit on in the Matt Canada offense. They just never built off of it. And when you don't build off of the things that you do succeed on, you're not going to find any momentum. And that's what the Steelers offense has been able to find a lot more this year.
Yeah, I liked the Matt Canada hire on its face, and probably for a lot of the same reasons that Mike Tomlin and the Steelers did. Was the guy had some good ideas. He had some good run game schemes. They wanted to see if it could translate from what he did at the college level to the pro level. And like you said, Chris, some of it did. He had some decent moments, but it was never consistent enough, obviously. And that's why he got fired mid-season, and this team struggled so much offensively when he was in that role. I think you can watch a lot of film and kind of decipher what a guy's going to try to do and what he's going to be able to do in terms of building a playbook and a system for your offense, but you never really know how they're going to respond to staying a step ahead of opposing defenses. Like you said, sequencing plays, having a feel for the game. Arthur Smith's already proven that at the NFL level with Tennessee. We talked about how it was up and down with Atlanta, but it seems like he's getting back to it in Pittsburgh. And I'll be honest, I wasn't sure how he was going to mesh with Russell Wilson. I didn't think he wanted to make the switch, just kind of based on his comments through the week and trying to interpret them. But clearly it's worked out great for everybody. And yeah, like we said at the top, who knows, maybe it'll work out to the tune of him getting a crack at a head coaching job sooner than anybody would have anticipated after the way things ended in Atlanta.
Well, we still have a lot to talk about. There's an actual game with the Browns coming up 1 p.m. Sunday in Acrisure Stadium. We'll be covering that here for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. But we also got to get to our pick six. Before we do all of that, we got to talk about our good friends at Edgar Snyder Associates, who sponsored this show. If you're injured in an accident, you're probably wondering what's next. Well, for over 40 years, Edgar Snyder Associates have helped injury victims answer that very question. Whether it's gathering evidence, collecting medical records, or dealing with insurance companies, Edgar Snyder Associates has helped over 75,000 people handle the question, what's next? Call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit www.edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. Remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Chris Carter, Brian Batko, breaking things down. Brian, it's time to get to our pick six here, where we go through the 6 games that do not involve the Steelers on the weekend and give you our thoughts and predictions on how things play out. Let's start with some 1 p.m. games here while that'll be going on during the Steelers-Browns game. Falcons at the Vikings. Vikings 5.5-point favorites over the Falcons. Brian, you switched up last week and you said you all season long, he's like, I don't believe in Sam Darnold, but I do today. And you were right. They delivered against the Cardinals. I think that they're going to win this one. I like the Falcons at times this year, but that Vikings defense, they've impressed me. I think that they get the job done here. And I'll even say that they cover the spread of 5.5 points.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins' return to Minnesota should be fun, but some of the buzz sapped out of that one because he served up 4 picks last week to the Chargers. Obviously, that's a good defense too, but I'm going to agree with you. I'll take the Vikings to hold serve at home here, but it wouldn't surprise me if Kirk Cousins rose to the occasion and, maybe the Falcons get back to one game above 500. I think they would be. I've been saying when we pick their games on this second segment all year that I feel like they're just going to waffle back and forth between a game up, a game down, right even. So I'll say they cover the spread, but I'm not going to pick against Minnesota at home in this one.
Agreed there. Seahawks at Cardinals. This is a big game in a very tightly contested NFC West right now. The Cardinals are 2.5-point home favorites over the Seahawks. But should they be? I mean, the Cardinals, they lost last week, but they've had a good season overall. Right now, if you look at the NFC West, the Seahawks do hold on to a 1-game lead at 7-5, but the Cardinals right behind them at 6-6. I've been going back and forth about this one, but I'm believing in Geno Smith. I'm believing in the Seahawks. I think they get it done on the road here. Brian, am I crazy?
No, this is just like Steelers-Browns. These two teams played each other 2 weeks ago. Seahawks found a way to grind out a 16-6 win at home, and they're hot right now. They've won 3 straight. They were on the ropes early against Aaron Rodgers last week, but found a way to rally back on the road at MetLife Stadium. So something's going right for the Seahawks. And, I don't have a great feel for these NFC West games. It seems like it's a really tough division to predict. So I'll just take the Seahawks on the road, certainly with the points at 2.5 that I'm seeing, but I'll even take them to win straight up just because they're on a little bit of a heater right now.
Speaking of the NFC West, the team that's supposed to be running the NFC West, the Niners, aren't doing that right now, but they are 3.5-point home favorites over the Bears who visit San Francisco this weekend. The Niners sitting at 5-7. They're barely hanging on right now. The only 2 games back technically of their division leader, but they're struggling. Christian McCaffrey's out for the year. They've been saddled with a lot of injuries, and the Bears not doing too much better at 4-8. But Brian, I'm picking the upset here. I think that the Niners are reeling so much that the Bears might be able to come into town, make some noise, cause some problems, and sneak out of town with a victory here, and probably ending the Niners season with this one. So give me Caleb Williams and the Bears finding a way to win this. What say you?
I also like the Bears getting the head coaching interim coach bump with Thomas Brown taking over for Matt Eberflus after what was, I think, a doomed tenure to begin with. Talk about just a hire that I never really understood and did not work out. Just another lost few seasons for Chicago. I wonder if Justin Fields slept any better over these last couple days, seeing what went on there. But yeah, I think the Bears are going to make it competitive, but I'm going to disagree with you. I think the Niners pull it out in a close one. Maybe they win on a last-second field goal. Their season's going off the rails, and they kind of need this one to save face a little bit. So I'll take the Niners at home, but I don't feel great about it.
I feel you on that. I'm not feeling great about it either, but I don't like the Niners in this situation. I think that they might struggle here. Let's talk about another NFC West team. Are we covering the NFC West now? It's kind of crazy. But the Bills are at the Rams. They head to the West Coast. The Bills are 3.5-point road favorites. Brian, I feel like that's a really small spread. I feel like these two teams should be much wider. The Bills, I think, are playing the best football in the NFL right now at 10-2. The Rams, 6-6, very up and down. Give me the Bills, but am I missing something here? Is there something that I'm overlooking that maybe I should be picking the Rams?
I don't know if you're missing something, but I am going to take the Rams at home here. Yeah. I think the spread might be low just because of one of those gut feelings from Vegas that soft spot in the schedule for the Bills. I mean, they've been riding high for so long now. Now they have to make the cross-country trek to go play in LA. Josh Allen indoors, I think, is really good, but I still think this Rams offense, especially the passing game with guys getting healthy, can give the Bills some problems. So sure, I'll say the Rams kind of, look feisty and maybe perk up their season a little bit by winning this one after winning on the road last week in New Orleans.
Boy, that would be really interesting to see. If this happened, the Bills would then drop down to 10-3. Yep. Then they go on the road to play the Lions next week. That would put that game in a lot of interesting ways, because if they were to drop to 4 losses, all of a sudden the Steelers could be in a position to catch and maybe even surpass the Bills, jumping them for the 2 spot, and they still got a game with the Chiefs. Oh man, is Brian cooking something up for the Steelers to run with the 1 seed? Maybe not all that, but
because after the Lions, the Bills get the Patriots twice and the Jets
in the last 3 weeks. They get to
play
I think it's the bottom feeders.
Yeah, that's why I said I think it's just kind of a little soft spot on their schedule here. Maybe the Rams pull out all the stops to try to beat them.
Chargers at Chiefs, AFC West game here. This, if it wasn't for Lions Packers, which was a really good game, this probably would have been game of the week. The Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites, but I do not care, Brian. The Chargers have been knocking on the door. The Chiefs have been saying, who is it, for about 5 straight weeks now, with the Panthers, the Raiders, the most random ways to win the Chiefs have had. Give me the Chargers walking into Arrowhead, doing it big, and getting a big win for their resume and keeping their wild card spot intact. I'm going with Los Angeles here, Brian.
Not only do I like the Chargers to cover the 4-point spread, but I'm with you, Chris. I think they win it straight up in Arrowhead. This just seems like a game for Jim Harbaugh to get these guys up. He brought them lunch pails this week to the locker room. Did you see that? Every Chargers player has their own lunch pail now with their name and number on it. So he's cooking up some of the football guy mind games. And yes, they're doing it against a team that is far from playing elite football right now. I mean, it was just a few weeks ago they went to Buffalo and beat the Bills. But yes, I think this is one of those divisional games where the Chargers kind of make it known that, hey, we're here, we're for real, we weren't pretenders. And Justin Herbert just went and got that nice spiffy haircut at a place where you wouldn't expect an NFL star quarterback to get his hair cut. And I like Story as well. So I'm riding the Chargers vibes.
It's funny. This is the 4th show that I've talked about this specific game on, and every time people come on and we're picking the Chargers. We're on the edge. Everybody's picking the Chargers this week. It feels like they should be the favorite for some reason. It seems like everyone's trying to make the edgy pick, and no, that's where everyone's leaning.
Well, right my Yahoo Pick'em app says 75% of the people on this are Chiefs -4. So maybe you just talk to a lot of hipster ball knowers, Chris.
Maybe that's what we're doing.
Or maybe we don't know ball. Maybe the Chiefs are gonna whoop these.
They win by 50, and we all look stupid. That's also very possible.
Mahomes throws for 420, 4 touchdowns. It could happen.
It could happen. Monday Night Football, Bengals at Cowboys. Bengals 5.5-point road favorites here. This would be interesting if the Cowboys weren't decimated and Dak Prescott wasn't sitting on the sideline.
Trash. It's the only AFC North game we're picking this week because obviously 2 of them are in the game we're going to talk about in the 3rd segment. The Ravens are on bye, and I mean we almost had to talk ourselves even into picking this, but it is Simpsons Fun Day on whatever, and I don't know if it's NFL Network, but
Disney
they're gonna
Plus?
have a simulated Simpsons game for this.
Yeah, I think it's Disney Plus that you can see. I'm kind of interested to see how this goes.
No, you're right. Yeah, they did that last year with
Toy Story.
Toy Story. They've done it in hockey with Big City Greens, which is my son's favorite show. We don't let him watch The Simpsons because he's 4, but maybe he'll check this one out.
Yeah, I was gonna say The Simpsons is I was like, how is this a kids thing? The Simpsons are not a kids show. But anyways, Brian, the Bengals, if you look at the teams that they've beaten, they've all been 2 or 3 win teams. This Cowboys team isn't good, but they've at least won 5 games here. I'm taking the Bengals here, but man, if they lose this one, they could be Zach Taylor is going to be in a lot of trouble. Not that he isn't already, but it would just compound upon things in the worst way.
Yes, I'm taking the Bengals. I think they've put a bunch of points up on this Cowboys defense. And I think this is just one of those sigh of relief games for them. I mean, the stakes were so high for the Steelers last week and they fell flat on their faces. This might even be their last gasp because, I don't know if they're going to be able to get up for Titans, Browns, Broncos, Steelers down the stretch, but at least here, primetime Monday Night Football for them, it's probably going to feel like they just, we're a boxer who fought a bunch of heavyweight champs in a row, and then they get some scrub who's never boxed before, and they're like, all right, we're just going to knock this dude down, and I don't know. We'll see what happens after that. But I like the Bengals in this one, and I like the Bengals pretty big.
Same here. We get to Steelers Browns next here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. But first, remind you this show is brought to you by Savinas, Kane, and Galucci. They're your mesothelioma and asbestos lawyers with over 85 years of experience. Call them today for a free consultation. That's Savinas, Kane, and Galucci. We're also brought to you by Moon Township Honda, where you can visit Moon Township Honda to get your new Honda vehicle at 5802 University Boulevard in Moon Township, Pennsylvania, or visit their website, moonhonda.com. Here's a message from our friends at Moon Township Honda.
It's that time of year again to get the Honda of your dreams during Happy Honda Days, where you'll find great offers on a sporty new Civic, spirited Accord, fun-to-drive HRV, and versatile CRV. So don't wait. Turn your holiday dreams into reality with a new Honda named KBB.com's best value brand. Buy online, reserve from select dealers, or visit your local Honda dealer today.
Back here in the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Chris Carter, Brian Batko. Brian, let's get into this Steelers-Browns game where the Steelers have been moving up and down. They're back up to 6.5-point favorites here. They were 5.5-point favorites for most of the week. They are money line set at minus 310, Steelers plus 250 for the Browns. Over under set at 43.5 points here. I think one of the storylines that I'm sure people will be tapping into on Sunday when the broadcast is getting going is Myles Garrett versus TJ Watt. In the last game, Myles Garrett had 3 sacks, TJ Watt had none. Myles Garrett said the Defensive Player of the Year award goes through me. Sounded like he was a big bad WWE villain.
I'm the guy.
Exactly. I'm the guy. Like he sounded
guy.
like
that's actually kind of a bar, but all right.
Look, he sounded like bad as all get out, like saying, and again, like his team had just won. Granted, like what 3-8, 4-8, whatever their record is. But but you take your wins when you get them, and he had a huge night, and you deserve it when you get 3 sacks to talk like that. But in the week since, he had 0 sacks. The Browns lost, gave up a lot of points. TJ Watt, 2 sacks, forced fumble, leads the league in forced fumbles, and now all of a sudden, TJ Watt is a half a sack behind Myles Garrett and 2 sacks behind, leading the NFL again. And something tells me how these two teams handle each other's top edge rushers might be a big sign of how this game could go. The Steelers' last game in the second half, they shut Myles Garrett down, albeit a little too late. But we've seen TJ Watt move around the defense a bit more. And Terrell Austin says it's more matchup determined. But I have a feeling, Brian, they're going to move him around a bit more. And this could be TJ Watt's get-back game.
Could be. And I think on the other side, the Steelers are going to be more on their P's and Q's against Myles Garrett. They even did adjust and played better against him in the second half of that first game. Now, with the snow and the field up there in Cleveland, did he have as much footing? Maybe not. Neither did TJ. He didn't do anything either. Did TJ Watt in the second half. But I think a lot of people have taken great pains to say, from Mike Tomlin to Arthur Smith, that, look, it wasn't just Myles Garrett was getting sacks left and right on Russell Wilson because Dan Moore turned back into a pumpkin. No, we were missing our chips. We weren't executing the little details to give him the schematic help that not just Dan Moore, but every left tackle needs against Myles Garrett. There's not many guys out there who should say, okay, we're leaving you one-on-one with an island with him all game. Go win, because that's just not sound football, nor would it be against TJ Watt. So I think that is a big factor, but I'm going to zero in a little bit more on a different aspect of the Steelers defense. The secondary needs to play better, and it would be low-hanging fruit to say that Joey Porter Jr. needs to stop reaching for low-hanging fruit when he's in coverage, but also, can't have any of these lapses on the back end. Minkah Fitzpatrick needs to continue to, do his job as that center fielder. But, you look at the Jamar Chase touchdown catch earlier in the Bengals game, it seemed to be a miscommunication between Minkah and maybe Dante Jackson. So they just need to shore things up, particularly against a Browns offense that seems like they're leaning in on just, hey, we're going to air it out. Jameis Winston's got nothing to lose. Jerry Jeudy's hitting his stride. David Njoku is hitting his stride. So I think they'll not try to get too cute in this one with the Steelers, knowing that the Steelers are going to try to smash the run as they always do. And if that's the case, Steelers need to be ready to fight fire with fire and do so without getting flagged 1,000 times in this one. Joey Porter Jr. probably grew up going to Kennywood, Chris, but I think he was working at Six Flags last week.
If I could Yoshi bonk you right now, right on the show, we need to get like the Yoshi bonk like as like an animated like GIF that I can just pop up and just personally
we could have Adam
womp.
Bittner like being our producer, like hitting the drop or something, giving us a board for you to hit. Yeah,
just I can't take your puns here. Not in this show, Brian. Anyway,
you didn't even get me talking about George Pickens, whose favorite golfer growing up was Shooter McGavin. So
I'm going to throw this mason jar that has my oatmeal in it at the wall right now. I hate your guts. Anyways, all right, let's get to predictions here. Brian, what's the X factor of the game and your final score and how things play into it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the X factor is that Steelers secondary because I think their offense is going to be able to move the ball. Starting Russell Wilson in fantasy this week, I picked him up because Jaden Daniels and Anthony Richardson are both on a bye. Great planning by your boy. That's why I'm in a fringe. That's why I need like 6 things to go right for me this week to even make the playoffs. So I'm turning to Mr. Unlimited because I think they're going to be able to move the ball, whether it's George in a kind of revenge game for him, although he also gave the Browns reason to want revenge, even though they won. But afterward, he said they're a bad team or not a good team at all. So kind of unneeded bulletin board material for them there. But I think George will talk the talk in addition to walking the walk. I think Pat Freiermuth could be in for another big game. So they just need to make sure they get the job done on the defensive end for them. And as far as my prediction, Chris, do you like Chinese food?
Yes.
So we had it. I went over to my parents' house last night for dinner, had Chinese food, almost left without eating my fortune cookie. That's kind of my tradition afterward. And like fortune cookies aren't good, but they're not bad.
No,
I always want to eat one.
They are bad. They're bad.
They're just like neutral. I mean, they're just whatever in my mind. So anyway, I eat it. You always have to eat it before you just get your fortune. Otherwise, it's not going to come true.
Wait, what are you talking about? You got to break it and take the fortune out.
Well, that's what I mean. But you can't just like break it, take the fortune, and not eat the cookie. You have to consume the cookie and then read the fortune, I think.
Okay.
That's at least how I've always operated. So I did that. And the fortune said, ride the wave to success. And I was like, that's kind of a Tomlinism. What are the odds that I would get? What are the odds that I would get this fortune? Because I was iffy. I was kind of going back and forth on this game going into the week. So I think that was a sign. I'm taking the Steelers. Steelers 30, Browns 22.
You just gave me an idea here. What if Mike Tomlin during the offseason, instead of studying tape, he like buys 1,000 fortune cookies and it's just cracking up. Nah, that's not a good one. That's not. Aha! Red barn, yellow barn. Bang! We got a banger. What if all of Mike Tomlin's Tomlinisms are actually just fortune cookies?
Wait, you know what? No, we got to spin this forward. This might be $1 million idea. If you think it is, cut this from the end of the show. We need to invent Mike Tomlin fortune cookies.
That's what are
instead
we doing?
Of a fortune, they have Tomlinisms
right
in. Tomlinisms are inside instead of fortunes.
Oh man, we got to patent this right now because someone's going to steal this idea and make a whole lot of money in the strip district. I can totally see it. Oh man, Permanis, what you doing out there,
dude? If Permanis gave you a fortune cookie at the end of every meal and it had a Tomlinism inside,
that's like the most Pittsburgh thing of all time.
That's actually an incredible marketing idea. Wow. All right,
look at us here.
Yeah.
Look at us here in the North Shore Drive podcast. But what was your final score again?
30-22 Steelers win. So win and cover.
I'm along the same lines. I'm thinking 33-16. I think that the Steelers offense rolls. Russell Wilson gets going. That allows Najee Harris to get going. They take over. I think the defense gets turnover. I think Minkah Fitzpatrick gets his first pick in this game.
How many weeks have we been saying that? Keep saying it. It's going to happen eventually. And you're like, look, I was right. But to forget about the 17 times we said it was going to happen.
I haven't said it for like a month. I haven't said it for like a month. So like I
didn't necessarily mean you, but a lot of people, I feel like there's been so many games where it's like, this is going to be the week for Minkah. And it never happens. But
it hasn't happened. I think even if he doesn't get it, someone's going to get their picks off on Jameis Winston this week. But we both have the Steelers scoring 30+ again and getting another divisional win this week. We'll see if we're right at it.
Isn't it weird that now it's like casual to predict the Steelers are going to put up 30, and I don't even feel like I'm being crazy to say so.
full circle here. Arthur Smith, what can he do for you? Maybe that's why he might be a head coach.
Whoa. Don't throw out the UPS slogan when you're talking about the Smith family.
What am I doing?
What can Smith do for you? No, bad marketing.
Well, look, we're balancing with good marketing and bad marketing at the end of the show here. He's Brian Batko. I'm Chris Carter. You can read all of our work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find us here on the North Shore Drive podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of those episodes, as well as the daily content that comes out from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, including Chip Tam and Football, which Brian hosts every Tuesday. We'll see you here from Acrisure Stadium Sunday afternoon after the Steelers take on the Browns. Keep it here with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all the sports coverage from the Post-Gazette that we have to offer, visit post-gazette.com.